Hello everyone, Kristina Werner here. Welcome to another video for SimonsStamp.com. Today I'm going to be playing with this stencil and also the stamps, and there's some dies that coordinate. I won't be using the dies today, but this is the Flower Power kind of suite of products from Simons Stamp. I'm mostly going to be using the stencil today, and I'll bring in a greeting from the stamp set a little bit later. But the thing that's really fun about this stencil is that you can really build different flowers and leaves and kind of build a whole scene with all of these images. Now, I'm going to be stenciling directly onto a 5x7 card that I folded and prepped for this. And when I do cards like this where I'm going to be ink blending off the edge, I like to just work on some scratch paper on the bottom of my surface and tape my card down to the paper. And that's because as I start ink blending with these inks, nothing's going to transfer to the back of the card, and it's going to keep everything very, very clean. Now, if you wanted to put your card base onto a sticky mat, you could do that as well. But I find sometimes that gets the sticky mat really, really messy. And so sometimes I just prefer to use paper. Simons Stamp has some grid paper that's great for this. I'm currently out of it in my craft room. I've got to order some more. So I'm just using some inexpensive computer printer paper. Super, super cheap. And you could even use, the back sides of bills if you don't need them anymore. Like things that come in the mail. You don't have to use anything that's crazy because no one's going to see this paper. So I am masking off each one of these images as I stencil them. I started with the color, I think it was Carnation, and now I'm onto SEAFOAM. I've basically picked out some rainbow colors, and for the most part, I have a light shade and a dark shade for this. The Simons Stamp Pawsitively Saturated ink line is great for this because the inks are the colors are selected in groups of 3 where you've got a light, medium, and dark. So it's super easy to pick out those colors and make sure that they look nice with each other. I've used the color Butter. I'll come back later and add a darker yellow. And now I'm going to do all the leaves in Perfection. This is the only color that I didn't have a light and dark for because I wanted all of the leaves to be the same shade. So I kind of moved this larger leaf image kind of around my card. I think I stenciled it 3 times, kind of moving it to different sections, and then moved on to some other flowers. I'm using the color Violet. Violet's actually the darker purple in my selection. I'm not sure why I picked that one first, but that's what we're going with. Moving on to some red shades, and I'm using the color Punch for that. And then I'm going to do a center of the flower. And I'm going to switch to a purple. I'm going to use violet for the center of this pink flower. Just going to give it a little bit of a different look. I do have a dark pink that I'll use on another pink flower later, but I really kind of loved this purple on top of the pink. Now look at this SEAFOAM on top of the pink flower. It turns purple. Isn't that so fun? So these colors layer on top of each other really well, and you get different colors where they overlap. It's really neat. For a darker yellow, I'm using the color Honey. So butter and then honey. We all love some honey butter, right? Makes me want like toast or like a biscuit or something for some honey butter. So I've sped up the video a little bit just to get through all of this ink blending. And I'm just making sure that I have a nice arrangement of the flowers and leaves, kind of mostly concentrated at the bottom of the card and then kind of going up to that top right corner. I'm going to keep that top left corner pretty empty, but I do want kind of a nice gradual kind of spray of flowers going up to that top corner. So I'm going to fill in all of these areas. I use sangria for a dark red on top of that red flower, and then I'm just layering more violet right on top of that purple flower. Here's that second pink flower I was talking about. I've used Carnation on the bottom, and then for the darker color, I'm using the color Rose, and that's just a nice pinky kind of darker red. Adding in a few more of these little dots. I'm going to put them in a little cluster together so they sort of look like berries, but technically it was meant for the center of flowers. And then there are 2 different heart images on this stencil. I've included kind of a medium heart and also a small heart. I only used the medium heart today. I'm adding on one more flower, and I actually decided to layer Carnation on top of Butter, and we get this kind of orangey shade. And then to add the center on that flower, I'm going to use the color Sangria. just for a darker red, just to bring in some more of those tones. So here's the finished stenciling on my card. I think this took me about 20 to 25 minutes to do all of the stenciling on the front of this card. So that's where the bulk of the time spent on this card is at. I'm using the stamp set now, the Flower Power stamp set, and I'm going to use the very simple It's Your Day greeting. This could go for a lot of different purposes: birthdays, graduations, retirements, just like it's your day kind of sentiment. I'm prepping some black cardstock with an anti-static powder tool and then stamping my greeting in white pigment ink from Simon Says Stamp. I have recently, over the last year or so, started doing all of my white heat embossing by starting it with white pigment ink, and I just get a more solid coating and it just looks really, really great. So that's what I've been using. I put on some white embossing powder. This is Alabaster from Brutus Monroe. Tapped off the excess and then hit that with my heat tool. You'll notice there's quite a bit of powder from my anti-static powder. It's kind of really stuck on that cardstock. A microfiber towel or rag really does pick up a lot of that extra kind of powder hanging around. And once I die cut this circle using the nested circles dies, you could hardly see any of that extra powder hanging around. I put some black foam squares from Simon on the back. These are the really, really thin foam squares. So even though this is popped up off the surface of the card, it really is a very thin card. It's almost a one-layer card. So I put that down right over my cluster of flowers. And then to finish off that top left corner, I'm using a ruler and a thin black marker just to draw in a dashed line. I'm going to have it kind of create the illusion of a border going all the way around. So I'm having it stop right up in that corner and then extending down and going through the flowers all the way to the bottom of the card. And that finishes the card design for today. I think in total, this card was finished in about 40 minutes, maybe a little bit less than that. Such a fun, colorful, happy card. I think you could swap out that sentiment for a lot of different greetings and have a bunch of different kind of topics for your cards, or different genres for your card, if you want to call it that. Thanks so much for joining me today. All of the supplies I've used today, including the stencil and the stamp set, are listed down below in the video description in the supply list. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in another video very soon.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.